We're going to start the series with the beginning of our universe. It is the outermost layer of this multi-density, infinitely regenerating, tube-torus onion of a multiverse we live in. 13 billion years ago, our local universe was brought into manifestation by an expansion of Mother-Father consciousness. The first inhabitants were a group of highly evolved souls from the next layer, called, among other names, the Paa Tal 6th density light beings who had volunteered for the task of babysitting the development of life in this brand new region of spacetime. For billions of years, they developed and nurtured galaxies, systems, suns, and planets a lot like we would care for a garden, ensuring that they had the proper mix of primal elements to evolve in the direction these founders wanted. They would give gravitational nudges here and there if an orbit needed harmonizing, suck some energy out of an over-eager star, establish transport systems referred to as wormholes, excreta. This, though, was only the first and easiest part of their job. The tough part was engineering a DNA molecule that was capable of spontaneous evolution and mutation, and that could still support 7D unity consciousness while in 3D form. The whole plan for our local universe, the purpose, was to create conditions such that conscious life could survive and remain in connection to the life source, while embodied at the third level of density, the one we here on Earth are familiar with. This is important information for us to have today, because much of the New Age movement revolves around the idea that the third density is a prison we are destined to escape from, when in fact it's more of a hospital or care center that enables us to reach and heal the mother wound. A dense, fleshy, individuated existence was the idea of creation from the jump, although it was entirely intended to be more malleable than it currently is on our planet. Most consciousness in the multiverse and in our local universe exits at 5th density and up. There have been other attempts to create third density beings in regions of other universes, these attempts which have eventually resulted in fallen universes, or regions of spacetime where the forces of destruction, the Asuras and demons of the void, hold sway. This happened primarily because the DNA molecules used in those early attempts weren't sufficiently designed to handle higher density consciousness, resulting in total system breakdowns and fragmentation of consciousness, but paving the way for the Ashuric demonic forces to come on in and do their dirty work. So the Paa Tal had their work cut out for them, and they were determined to get it right. But it took 9.25 billion years to develop a universe that could support third density lifeforms. Then, 4.5 billion years ago, the work of creating and implementing a third density, self-evolving, multi-density interfacing DNA molecule began in earnest. The chief engineer and designer of our form of DNA was a Paa Tal named Yahweh, but before we really get into his story and the creation of the first humans, I need to tell you another story. When most of us hear the name Lucifer, we instantly think of biblical references, but the being known as Lucifer was around long before the Bible was. 4 billion years ago, at the time that he enters our story, he is a bright, powerful, and strong archangel, long before the war in heaven, which resulted in his banishment to our Earth. At this time in our universe, there were many galaxies, solar systems, and planets that were well established. A big migration was taking place as beings from other regions of the multiverse came here to explore and create. Many also decided to take up residency as the souls of planets and suns in this new region of spacetime. Lucifer was one of these early explorers, and he had an idea about how he could create an embodied third density life form immediately. He saw no need to wait while the Paa Tal tinkered around, trying to get a self-evolving DNA molecule right when, to him, a DNA that is perfect and unchanging would be more ideal. Almost all of Lucifer's later troubles resulted from this obsession with eternal, unchanging perfection, which was the unfortunate byproduct of how he was created. The creation of Lucifer. Lucifer is a very powerful and bright archangel. His name translates as Lightbringer, Shining One, Morning Star, in various languages, and he was born with a chip on his shoulder for a good reason. Our mother and father were still getting to know each other at the time of his creation. It was at one point, early in this courtship, that mother complained that father's light was too bright for her, so bright it was a bit frightening. Rather than figuring out how to make his vibration more gentle and soft, our father simply traveled to the dividing line that separates the void from creation and dumped that too bright aspect of himself into the void. This fragmentation of father created Lucifer, who was immediately subjected to the influence of the void's residents, Ahriman and his Asuras, who reinforced his already hurt feelings by being abandoned there. Mother and father had both fragmented aspects of themselves, both deliberately and unconsciously, into the void before, and usually that piece of essence didn't have much, if any consciousness, except for a set of imprinting that told it I shouldn't exist. But the energy fragmented this time was very bright and conscious, and had, actually, a lot of good qualities to it. That's how Lucifer managed to escape the void and avoid becoming an Asura himself. By the time he found his way out, though, he was, as we have come to know him in the stories of the war in heaven, a bright, powerful, and persuasive archangel who was pissed at God and wanted to do things his own way. Lucifer knew of a race of reptilians, living in a fallen region, an area fully under the sway of Ahriman of an earlier layer of the multiverse, whom he could use as seed stock in our universe, a race which he admired for their strength, size, aggressive nature, and androgyny, which he considered more perfect and efficient than a race that is split into sexes. Also, it was more in his image, as archangels are also androgynous. He felt that with the proper guidance and leadership, his leadership, that this race could become truly powerful and dominant in this new territory. It's not that Lucifer was necessarily evil at the time, you understand. He was just impatient, eager to create life on his own, and was deeply entrenched in the service to self-paradigm. He also had a pretty big chip on his shoulder when it came to divinity and its plans, so the fact that he was going against divinity's designated architects of this universe, the Paa Tal, didn't mean much to him. It probably encouraged him. So he took this reptilian DNA, which was quite stable and did not evolve or mutate spontaneously, and he seeded it on a planet in the system we now call alphadraconis. Thus were born the Cikar, the first of the draconian or Draco race, in our universe. Embodied life exists most naturally at the 5th density, so Lucifer had to impose a 3D matrix on this planet in order to develop 3rd density life, but because they incarnated into a DNA lineage that was tuned towards service to self, and because they believed their creator, Lucifer, when he told them that this universe was theirs to inherit and dominate, the draconian consciousness actually vibrated naturally at this 3rd density level as well, just barely above the 2nd density pure fight or flight survival consciousness. They arrived much earlier on the scene than other races, so they achieved a high level of technology long before anyone else was around. So once they started exploring space, they essentially took their own 3rd density matrix experience with them wherever they went, because that was the frequency their consciousness was most comfortable experiencing, though it wasn't too long before they figured out how to access the lower 4th density as well, the astral plane, through technology, and that is the level of frequency where they tend to mostly hang out these days. By the time Yahweh and his friends got some human life going, the Cikar had already achieved interstellar travel. They were a race of self-serving, militaristic explorers, large and aggressive predators with no connection to love and unity consciousness whatsoever. They would even find that humans made tasty snacks. Wait until you hear about them in the Garden of Eden. Until next time. Like for more, subscribe. If you would like to see more, click the bell for part 2.